Hello and welcome to Adweek Together. It is Monday, May 11th, 2020. I'm Stephanie Paterik, Executive Editor of Adweek. I'll be your host today. And we have a great group of guests lined up for the show this week. Later in the week, Twitter's going to be here talking about social media trends. H&R Block, CMO, is going to be here talking about what has to be the strangest tax season in history, and lots more. I want to take a minute to remind you that if you are finding this content valuable, you can support our journalism with an Adweek Pro subscription, and you can get that offer at adweek.com/offer. So for today, we are going to explore all things audio. I'm super interested in this topic because I think there's so much happening and changing in the space right now. So with so many people suddenly working from home, how are listening habits changing around podcasts, around music, and around audio ads? We have a guest tuning in, joining us today from California. Claire Fanning is the VP of Ad Product Strategy at Pandora, and she's going to give us some insights into what Pandora is seeing. Claire, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie.
Yeah, so, we've been quarantining for almost 2 months now, right? And I know that beforehand, I had an hour commute into the city every day where I would be, putting in my earbuds 2 hours a day, listening to podcasts, things like that. With everything shifting, people working from home, what sort of changes are you seeing in your listeners' habits?
Yeah, great question. And I think it's, best answered sort of looking at myself as a case in point, because for so many people, it will resonate how they're spending their day to day. You referenced not having a commute anymore and it changing patterns. I believe we're both moms of young children. There is so much that the home has become. It is a gym, it's a salon, it's a restaurant, it is the office, and it is school. And seeing how families are and individuals are responding to that movement has been hugely interesting to see on the audio front, because we are monitoring every bit of it. Not surprisingly, but exciting, we're seeing a huge upsurge in connected home usage. So people are at home, that's how they're listening. And it's not only, okay, I'm just deciding to listen longer, but there are behaviors where the ability to connect certain moods and music is happening in real time. We start every morning with classical music or opera, and it's really to set the tone for everybody, including my 1- and 3-year-old, who just need to understand that Monday through Friday is serious business for everybody. And not only are we seeing the usage increase, but also devices being activated. So again, case in point for me, we installed an additional router and several new speakers in our home so that we could sort of all take advantage of different rooms in the house and create new environments there. So that's been, really interesting to see. And what's so exciting is just to talk to brands about how they want to take advantage of that evolution.
Yeah, I love that you're mentioning the family dynamic, because it's not just that we're working from home, it's that we have multiple family members, multiple generations sharing the home together all day. As you mentioned, we both have 3-year-olds. You have a 1-year-old. We were both shuttling our kids, out of the home before we started this broadcast. How are brands thinking? How is that changing the dynamic when you've got so many generations listening at once, and very different needs on their mind right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. Co-listening has always been a thing that we've catered to in the connected home. If you're speaking to one person, you might be speaking to several. And so in terms of creative best practices, we've always liked the idea of starting a conversation. You know, give this group of people, however many they are, an opportunity to discuss your brand after the spot is up. And I think now more than ever that resonates. And to your point, there are different generations with different needs at play. So there are creative components to consider. And I really think the brands that are honing in on utility are doing a really good job. You know, everybody is going through a time, whether it's a hard time or a cozy time, it's a really different time. And acknowledging that in a really authentic way, where maybe you're providing somebody an opportunity to understand the service, is probably the most interesting way to do that. And we've seen some good examples. Pampers, for example, which I still have, you know, a baby in diaper, so that resonates with me. They're encouraging moms to, you know, create words of encouragement for other moms through their Share the Love campaign. And, you know, at this time, everybody sort of wants to hear that everyone's going through it, no matter what they're going through. And so to offer that and just this emotional connection, I think is really interesting. We've seen Visit Costa Rica in a time where we know that travel is down and, you know, it's sort of hanging in the balance right now, but they're creating spots that sort of take their audience away for a moment and provide an escape for 30 seconds to remind them Costa Rica will be here when they're ready to return. But in the meantime, just envision yourself in Costa Rica. And sometimes just that short escape is really helpful. And I think the last example that I'll call out is Comcast with their XFi. They're offering opportunities to easily pause Wi-Fi, for example. It's simple, but so important. Like, how do you get a kid who is spending too much time on the screen to pause and just take a moment? So, you know, with this, I think everybody should be encouraged to think about the creative that's happening in the home. And it doesn't have to be COVID or health related, you know, unless you're actually qualified to speak to that. That probably doesn't make sense, but it's really, how can we as a brand help someone's day to day and acknowledge who we're reaching and this time that we're all in right now?
I love something I'm keying into you saying is brands really focusing in on a need. So like the need for escape with the travel campaign, the need to lessen screen time, the need for encouragement from community. I think that's really interesting. I want to take a minute too to mention that people are tuning in from LinkedIn, Facebook, and also on adweek.com. I'm monitoring your comments on LinkedIn. So if you have a question for Claire, please drop it in the comments. I'd be happy to throw it her way. I see we've got people tuned in from St. Louis, from Canada, from Nepal, from France, a lot of places. So if you have a question about audio, drop it in there. So, you know, something that's interesting right now, and I'm wondering how you're tracking the data on your customers right now, because while many of us have been in the same boat, we're starting to see states ease up on their shelter in place and stay at home restrictions. I was just speaking to family members in Arizona, and I heard that nail salons open on Friday and restaurants are starting to open this week. How much of a challenge is that for you when we're going to enter this phase where some people are going out, some people are commuting, and other people are hunkered down?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a challenge. I think because we're listening or reaching an individual, regardless of how they decide to listen to music and content, we have the advantage of understanding where we are reaching them. So advertisers can decide to only reach people in the home or only in the car or only on their mobile device. And the most advanced audio brands are creating ad spots that cater to that medium. So, you know, you might be one of what feels like the only people who are commuting to your job, and it's okay, we can still speak to those people. And in fact, you know, there's been some essential worker messaging that is at play. You might find that you're still reaching somebody in the home, but their time in the home is evolving. So one thing that we are anticipating as we've seen these efforts to create a phased open is we're probably going to see more and more people in homes where that continues to evolve to a more extensive place of business or social gathering place. And so we anticipate more dinner parties to be had, and people who are sort of embracing the quarantine concept. But leveraging the data we have, we are able to cater to different people's needs and life stages and coordinate that with the brands who want to reach them.
Something, a comment from LinkedIn, Jennifer Helene Smith mentioned that she loves all the music and movie stars and military bands and even ordinary people that have started creating content and sharing their talents. And I think we've seen a lot of real-time creativity on a streaming service like Pandora. Are you able to tap into that versus just your sort of catalog of audio?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, one trend that we've seen, it's been really interesting to watch what people are listening to in this time. And we know there's a connection between mood and music. So there's a lot of people tuning into country. Just, I think from my perspective, it's just a chilled out way to listen. Similarly, people are tuning in a lot more to live songs, top live songs. They want to hear in the moment music being played to people so that maybe they feel like they're in the mix. Additionally, we represent SoundCloud's inventory, and we've seen a massive creator surge on that front, where there's all of these creative minds to this, question who want to produce, and there's maybe more time that they have or different inspirations. And so we're certainly seeing an uptick on the creator front, which is providing a lot of fun opportunities for us to put together appropriate playlist environments for our consumers as well.
Yeah, it has been a really interesting time for creativity, challenging, but also sort of the mother of invention. We had another question from Isabel Chang. She asked if you could describe Pandora's customer persona before and after the pandemic. Has that changed for you?
So it has, in that we're always looking to cater to a personalized experience, and we know that there is a very different experience that has happened for the past 2 months. So on the consumer side, we're encouraging people to discover their great indoors, a new concept for sure. But for example, we've rolled out in partnership with Hasbro gaming playlists. So we have a Monopoly playlist, a Jenga playlist, a Twister playlist. I highly encourage it to try it if you haven't already. It's really a fun thing to do with kids, parents, that dinner party that might happen eventually. So what we're looking to do is aid people in hunkering down. We've certainly recognized that at the very beginning, there was a need to consume content around coronavirus, and we surfaced podcasts that were able to get them there. We've been surfacing within our For You environment, which is our landing state, opportunities for people to chill out, to focus, to double down on news content, to play those board games. So really, you pick, but the evolution for us has been making sure that we are listening to trends and reacting in real time to produce content for them to consume.
I'm so impressed with brands that are coming out with campaigns really tailored to this moment. I know for us, like in the first couple of weeks after people started sheltering in place, it was so quiet on the creativity front. We didn't see any new creative, and you just got this sense that everyone was kind of, hunkering down and coming up with their strategy. And now we're really starting to see it roll out. Can you tell us anything about how this campaign came together for Pandora, or any key stats that help drive the thinking behind it?
Sure. In terms of understanding our consumer base, we saw the things happen that you'd expect to happen. There are people who have decided to make their entire living room a home gym. There are people who, are just exhibiting behaviors where they're just listening to Pandora a lot more, especially between the hours of 12 and 7 for us. So considering what was really pertinent in these timeframes, and also understanding our audiences so deeply, that went into creating opportunities for everybody. It wasn't a one size fits all, but it was going back to that utility statement that we talk about with brands, what is the utility we're providing for consumers? And it's really happening in real time. You know, as you mentioned in the beginning, there was sort of this lull, and there were a handful of brands who were able to really nimbly take advantage of the moment, but some of them had to play catch up. And there's this, you have to consider what you're working with. The first 2 weeks was different than the second 2 weeks, which was different than the third 2 weeks. And that is where it's always an evolution on the consumer side for us. And similarly with our creative consultancy studio Resonate, we've also been helping to support really nimble creative adjustments on the brand front, so that there can be these small tweaks and adjustments to creative to help that authenticity and empathy resonate along with utility.
I want to talk to you about podcasting for a moment, and maybe podcasting versus music. But I know for us as a media company, we've definitely seen some perhaps short-term shifts in our readership and viewership, where we saw some of our audio numbers come down, and then our video numbers go up. And I know other people have noticed sort of podcasts take a bit of a dip, just because people are not alone on the commute, able to focus in. There was such momentum behind podcasting right before this. So what are you guys seeing in that space? And are you shifting your focus away from podcasts at all, or are you bullish on that continuing to be a trend long term?
Yeah, I would say it was super interesting in the beginning to understand the trends, because there was the commuting component, which is a big one. I have an hour commute also, and I'm a huge podcast consumer. But there was also, what do I want to listen to? And what we observed on our platform, and in just speaking to industry partners, is a temporary reduction, I should say, in serialized drama. So think about your Dirty Johns or whoever it is that you're consuming, and an uptick, as you might imagine, in news and very relevant content, so specifically about coronavirus. That was in the beginning, and I remember hearing that and thinking, that totally makes sense. I have too much anxiety to tune into a serialized drama. Like, I just want to know that I'm on the pulse of information. And to your point, I think the trends that you saw are consistent with that. However, just like everything else, we're seeing things even out and people sort of returning to their norms. And if I was a podcast consumer 8 weeks ago, I'm probably not different as an individual. It's just finding my new routine that is different week over week, and especially month over month. So I would say that, given we're so interested in people's audio content, consumption trends and what they're really looking for, that podcast content is still super compelling. And long term, my vision hasn't changed, and we're not looking to make, adjustments based on the last 8 weeks. But what is more interesting is, based on changes in lifestyle, how do we continue to cater to that? Yeah. And again, keep our platform nimble.
Along those lines, there's a question from Richard Salazar. He says, what will the new norm for audio streaming look like? I guess just to expand on what you were just saying, do you think trends are going to snap back to what they were 2 months ago? Or are there some fundamental shifts that you think could be long lasting?
I think a little bit of both. And I don't know what part of this is rational thinking or optimism, but one thing that we see, as you said, certain states are opening before others. And I think the way that people's lifestyles go back to normal is probably consistent with how long they've been abnormal. If you've been on lockdown for a week and then come out of it, it's probably a blip on the radar. If you are really you're in it for the long haul and you've now set up a home office and you've got your new routine going, that could change too. So right now it's really about, again, connecting the opportunities and understanding state by state what people are thinking and trying to accommodate those needs. But I think it'll be a little bit of both. I mean, my hope is that people have rediscovered the living room and family time and, the idea of just relaxing in your home and doing more in your home. So that might hold a little bit longer, but it remains to be seen.
I love how, earlier you were talking about how advertisers' content is changing and how they're adjusting for this moment. I wonder if the actual advertisers themselves have changed. Are you seeing different types of brands advertising different types of products?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, think about a small business owner who is just day to day thinking about what to do. Do I stay open for takeout? Do I alter my product and create provisional boxes instead of just your typical dine-in takeout option? We've been seeing a lot of real-time decisions that are being made, and that is where we're really looking to accommodate. And one of the benefits of audio is just efficiency and creating new assets and being able to be nimble around that messaging. But outside of that, I think that it really is around the tone and understanding, what the learnings have been in a traditional environment and how do I apply that to today's environment. I would say that, there's not always an opportunity for a brand to have a massive statement in a time like this. So staying true to yourself, the small business owner example is really real, and week to week that changes. But if I am a brand that will always be that brand with that product, fair. I think that you can, talk about it in that way. We provide testing opportunities and, we're trying to, in real time, provide feedback in terms of what sentiment some of these assets are conjuring. But I think staying true to yourself and understanding your needs as a brand is paramount.
I love that. That's been a consistent theme too, of not just jumping into the conversation for the sake of jumping in, but really making sure your brand has something to say if you're going to be talking about the crisis in particular. And so my last question for you, I want to talk about creators and to creators. Can you tell us how Pandora works with creators and maybe your strongest piece of advice for them in this moment?
We work with creators all the time, whether, that's music or podcast creators. And right now, I think you might have mentioned this, but innovation in a time of crisis is something that we're all experiencing in real time. So the advice is own it, go with it, get that energy out however you can. And if you are a creator, it's going to be so exciting to see what comes out of this. And it's hard to find the silver lining sometimes, but I think that's one of them. And we're excited to continue to foster that.
I love that advice. I think there's, something to be said for moving quickly right now and not necessarily making it perfect, but jumping in. Claire, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate all the insights you've shared around audio. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Have a great day.
Great. And viewers, tomorrow at noon, come back here, noon Eastern time, because we are going to be talking to Aaron Harvey. He's the founder of Ready, Set, Rocket, and he's going to be talking all about building an agency during a crisis. So if you work for an agency or you are an entrepreneur, you're building up a brand, something new at a time like this, I think you're going to find a lot of insights there. And I also just want to mention that you can find all of our episodes. We record 5 days a week. You can find them all at adweek.com/together. And also you can sign up for an Adweek Pro subscription to get those episodes and much more at adweek.com/offer. So thank you so much for spending part of your day together with us, and be well.